All right, happy holidays, everybody out there. Welcome back to another edition of Raptors 2K podcast brought to you by our friends at UberEats. This is episode number 14. Yes, we are still in the double digits and still letting these things fly on out. I'm Phil Visu. That's my man, Shane. Shane, talk to me, bro. At the time of this recording, Thanksgiving has just passed. Did you have a nice holiday feast?
Well, given that we are Canadian, our Thanksgiving was last month, but I got a
Damn.
lot of thoughtful messages from individuals like yourself yesterday who I work with wishing me back a happy Thanksgiving as I sent them a happy Thanksgiving message. And so there was a real education going on. And I was shocked at the number of people that work at AMP that do not know that Canada has its own Thanksgiving. But I will say it's not as egregious of an error because honestly, Thanksgiving in Canada doesn't have the same punch that it has in the US. It's just not as significant of a holiday. Obviously, we all appreciate getting together with our loved ones, but I think in the US it's just like such a cultural thing. I was thinking the other day, actually, I was lying in bed. I was like, when people talk about American culture, American like food culture, it's like burgers, fries. I think like the epitome of American food really is Thanksgiving, because like what meal is more iconic to America, to Americana than Thanksgiving? You know what I mean? I feel like it's like turkey stuffing, potatoes, like all that kind of stuff.
I mean, it's hard to disagree with you. Unfortunately, I was not one of the Americans who got to enjoy such a feast. I stuck here in California, didn't get to go home for a home cooked meal. I think my roommates got some scalloped potatoes, stuffing, and pre sliced ham from Costco. And
Hey man, you're
yeah,
chasing the creator dream. You got to move away from
it
home,
was.
hit LA, get discovered, onto greener pastures.
Yeah, honestly, as I blame myself, I should have just cooked too because actually a pretty fair cook, but I was just so lazy and distraught. Like, it's never going to be as good as mom or grandma, so I was just like, keep it. And that's it. That's my holiday.
Well, I was sharing with everyone. Everyone knows we like to kind of talk about the behind the scenes of the industry. I think that's one of the areas where Phil and I can add some insight, and I think some of our more regular listeners like hearing this stuff. So I also did not have a crazy Thursday. We at my main job at AMP, we dropped our first real apparel drop yesterday, and I was telling
Hmm.
the guys it went out at midnight Eastern time, and I popped on with our partner, and we were just looking at how things are going, pushing the initial marketing out, all that stuff. And my partner was like, "Oh, you know what? I actually have like a live chat. I'm going to turn that on because I can answer questions about shipping." And you learn a lot right out of the gate, right? Because there's still some problems in the site, and you figure that out. Some guy was trying to get shipped to Slovenia. You got to add the country to like the shipping, destinations
Okay.
and all that. And so he turns on the live chat, and then all of a sudden he gets locked out of it and can't troubleshoot it. And then he's like, "Why don't you try?" Because I also have admin access just to monitor sales and stuff. And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'm in." So he's kind of giving me the answers to the problems. And next thing you know, it's 5 a.m. My time. And so if I look especially tired in any way or gaunt, that's because I only slept 3 hours. Also, I maybe get a little tongue tied because that's what happens when I get tired. And the last point I'm going to clarify, not to complain, but just to kind of explain to the audience, my light that I normally have lighting myself up is in my basement. It's being used as like a makeshift product photo studio right now. I've got literally some of the sample hoodies that I have stuffed with balloons, hanging on a steamer, lit from all directions with every light I have, including my red light that used to wash the walls at my old condo when I used to do the pod from there. So I've got a little makeshift studio all set up, trying to get some new product marketing out the door by the end of the day today.
Hey, that's a miracle you're actually able to take time to film our podcast. So we certainly do appreciate you taking the
I love
time. And
doing it, Phil.
honestly, Shane, yeah, it's a great time and that's a lot of work. But before we even get started, you should probably fuel up, my guy, because it sounds like you have a busy day ahead even after the podcast. So tell me what's on the order sheet for you today.
You know what? It's probably going to be. There's a pizza spot that's only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday around here, and with like the amount of times like you have to go out on like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like I just never get it. And
Yeah.
I've been craving it for like a month, and I've like had these like plans. Okay, we're doing this spot. It's like a mom and pop shop, like best pizza in Canada type thing, 15 years ago or whatever, but just super good. And I've been craving it. And my fiance Brooke, who doesn't usually like to have me eat pizza and stuff like that, she's not here right now, so I think I'm gonna get myself an extra large pie and just enjoy that after this, throughout this, and into the evening.
Fair enough. I like that already. I
What about
placed
you?
some.
You going
I
healthy
actually have
again?
a. I am not because it's Thanksgiving weekend, so whatever. I'm actually there's a place around here. It's a China Run is what it's called. and it's got some pretty good General Tso's. And I got to enjoy a lot of good Chinese food since I've been to Cali. I feel like I don't know what's that. They got a lot of good Asian food, but Chinese food just doesn't always hit. But they got some good General Tso's, so I just placed an order for that, and that's how I'm going to start my day.
Nice.
After we're done.
Nice. Well, now that we've got that done and dusted, and my Uber Eats is surely cooking faster than yours, and will be here by the end of the pod, I bet. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the big news. Our boy Saint was traded this week in a big 4-team trade. Yeah, I got mixed feelings about it too. I really like Saint. I thought he brought a lot. But, again, we like to, keep it transparent here. I think that's the reason why people tune into podcasts, raw and real. We can talk a little bit about some of the insight that, I think went into why that trade was made. And I think everybody in the league knows Big Saint is a crazy talent. But, I think there's a particular systems that certain coaches like to coach with. And, as everybody probably knows, Raptors Uprising hired Roy Christian to come in and be the Raptors coach for next year. He was with the Mavs last year. He made a name for himself in the Pro-Am community. I've been super impressed by the conversations I've had with him, really deep thinker about this stuff. And, he's got a particular sort of style of system he wants to build and a particular type of lock that I think he wants in that system. And not that I'm fully involved. Honestly, that trade went down without me even knowing. I had a meeting with the team just to kind of check in on how everyone was doing on Friday, just play a little advisory role stuff. And by Monday, the trade was done, and I had no news about it. So truly, I'm just kind of reacting to this almost from an outside POV, other than that one conversation I had. But that's kind of the sense I got, was there's a particular system that Roy wants to build, and I think maybe a different type of lock, as skilled as Saint is, will better fit that system that he wants to build. That's what I understood.
You know what? Those are all fair, valid, and good points. My honest, raw prediction, though, they're going to regret that. Big Saint was a beast.
He was a beast.
Period.
He was a beast, and he's got compete in him. You know what I mean? I love that about him.
No, so bro. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens, but anytime you leverage some good talent like that, obviously you're hoping to get some good return off your investment. So hopefully it pans out for them. I'm
all the best to Big Saint, man.
For them. Yeah, of course. Of course, no doubt about that.
Now, on the bright side, Raptors have back-to-back picks at 25 and 26, which is just outside the first
second round, right?
Yeah, top of the second round. And so, it probably not surprising to anyone, especially anyone who's done any kind of like fantasy stuff, but having back-to-back picks is huge, because even if you have close picks, and there's a couple, you're like, oh, do I prioritize my shooting guard? Do I prioritize my lock here? You know what I mean? Like, making that choice when it's possible, you're really analyzing, are the teams between our next two picks possibly going to grab one of these positions? And if they are, you might even have to go with the player that you think is probably lesser valued but more likely to go in between your two picks, if that makes sense. So having back-to-back picks puts you in a really nice position where it's like, exactly what you're getting at two key positions, and you don't have to do that like juggling act of figuring out which do I need more, which is more likely to not be there if I were to let this slide and let a few more teams pick in between us. So yeah, Raptors have back-to-back picks, 25 and 26 in the second round, as well as pick 36 in the third round. And there's going to be a total of 47 picks next year in the draft. I think what we're seeing, obviously, year over year is the number of positions open is shrinking, even as teams are joining the league, and that's because we're finding who the seasonal talents are, who those guys who are deserving to come back every year. And I think that's creating probably even more talent, less risk, hopefully, in the draft. And so with 47 picks and us drafting 3 between 25 and 36, pretty excited to see what Roy and the team can do. As those who've been following us will know, we traded our first this year for Saint to come this way in the first place, right? So no first round pick, but we do have Kenny and Type, both beasts, both guys who really buy into the system here. And again, I'm excited to see what Roy and Kev and the whole team can do.
Well, it's going to be an interesting and new season once we hit 2023. So again, best of luck to the Raptors 2K squad on some of the new acquisitions coming their way to try and get back in that championship picture. But I think it's time that we invite on our guests, because we're actually doing things a little bit different for this one. Maybe it's because there's the World Cup going on. We were like, you know what, a FIFA player seems like the way to go. And I kind of like that. I like that bridging of communities. We actually have our friend GoalMachine going to be joining us for the podcast. Welcome in, my friend. How are you doing this beautiful Friday evening or morning or afternoon?
Whatever time it is over
Afternoon.
here.
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm just doing a little bit of my job, and yeah, pretty good this morning. How about you guys?
This is work today, huh?
Yep, it's work day.
I
The
like
weekend's
that.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
What's up, Noe, man? It's good to reconnect with you. So, first kind of icebreaker point. The almost one of the last things I did while I was full time at MLSE was sign with Noe as our new Toronto FC, eMLS, and broader FIFA competition representative. So, Noe is the one person in the world who represents Toronto FC in FIFA, the video game. So, unlike Raptors Uprising, which obviously we have a whole team of people every season. Noid, FIFA Pro is played pretty much 1v1, sometimes 2v2, and Noid is the man who reps Toronto FC, and he does that very well. I guess as I was transitioning out of MLSE, I remember I was taking an extended trip. It was still remote work. I was down in Florida, and eMLS season was kicking off, and Noid came right out of the gate and won his first tournament, and it was incredibly exciting. And it was all the years of being kind of a playoff team, but not ever bringing home a title. It was amazing to watch you win. It felt very, very rewarding for me, and it was just felt like, okay, I'm leaving our TFC program now in really good hands from a competitive perspective. So shout out to you, Noid, for winning that title last year, and obviously hope for more trophies next year.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I remember that pretty vividly. It was my first tournament. I was a little bit nervous, but I played my best, I think, and got the win.
Always great coming out of the gate with a new organization and delivering a title like that. Obviously super excited. And then, hey man, you were super competitive through the rest of the season as well. But FIFA, it's such a game of inches, and there's so much like luck involved. And I can't even remember the emotional roller coaster in specifics, but I do know that it was like tight, and you were giving everyone a run for their money. Why don't you walk us through a little bit of kind of how the rest of the season played out, what some of those bigger wins and losses were?
Yeah, that one played out pretty good, and then after that, I had the LS2, which was I think a week or two after that one. And I remember between those 2 weeks, there was an update in the game, and it was pretty like major updates, and it kind of changed the gameplay and how people played. And I'm pretty sure everyone struggled to adjust, and I'm not gonna lie, so did I. But I think I eased into it a bit as they got closer to the tournament time, and I still played pretty great in that one too. And then, but the disappointing thing was in the knockout rounds, I lost. I lost in the first round, but in like the league table for that one, I think I secured second place, which is still pretty good considering I finished first in the last one.
That's great. And shout out, you're also now the captain of Team Canada's e-national team, which is a huge honor, obviously representing the whole country. That's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. I remember last year when the team was getting picked, it was based off. I think there was going to be three players, and it consisted of one player from the leaderboards, whoever was first, and then the next two were chosen from like a tournament that was played within Canada, or like all the competitive players or pro players could have competed in it. And I was currently first in the leaderboard, and then there was an upcoming qualifier, so I was kind of scared. I was like, if I perform bad, maybe the other guy can overtake me, So I really had to. Then I played in the tournament for the two spots, and I lost in that one. It was on the PS4 version, which I wasn't really used to, and I struggled a bit. I feel like I got unlucky, but that's FIFA. And then the qualifier was like around the corner, I think next weekend, and then like I tried really hard that qualifier, even though I was already in a good place. But then I matched up the Canadian rank below me in like the knockout round. I was like, this is it. I was like, if I lose this, I'm not gonna get picked for Canada. And I'm like, if I win, I get picked. And then I think that game, like I tried so hard, and I got a comfortable win. And then yeah, after that, like I was pretty happy because I knew my spot was secured in the national team. And yeah, from there I got picked as captain.
I gotta admit, I'm a little ignorant to some of the competitive FIFA world, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just I'm not familiar with it. So between games, from 2022 to 2023, is there a huge skill gap disparity, or do you feel like it's almost consistently the same way to kind of pilot the game and just be good, or do you just have to adapt? Because I know for 2K, there's always those little changes that actually can be a big blow up depending on if somebody's rookie of the year or just getting benched. I've seen it 100 times. You know what I'm saying? So what's the skill gap between game to game?
I know exactly what you're talking about. And the funny thing is, since like let's say FIFA 18, 19, the skill gap has only dropped, which makes the game a little bit tougher because then there's
Mhm.
only like so many minor things you could do, and it's like split second decision making that makes you the better player. Which as back in the day, there was like a bunch of things you could do, which the opponent had to think about, let's say 10 different things, whereas now there's like only two different options you could do, right? So, but still, end of the day, I think there's still a skill gap, and like they made the game more slower, which now I feel like you have to think more like logically instead of just like ping pong arcading everywhere. And yeah, but I mean, end of the day, you have to adjust, and to be the best, you gotta grind and adjust and try. Yeah.
When you say back in the day, what's your come up in FIFA look like? When did you actually start playing and like realize you were good? How did you realize you were good? Like, because when I met you, you were already like on the international stage. Like, you were like probably the most hyped player from North America, I would say at the time, or definitely from Canada. I mean, you were 100% on our radar, but you were signed to more of like a traditional esports kind of FIFA team, and so we weren't even able to have a conversation at that point about you being Toronto FC's rep because you were like locked up in a contract. And I met you at a TFC game. We invited you to a suite there. But like, what was your come up like? Like, how did you kind of rise to that level of notoriety? What would it look like?
Well, I mean, I played FIFA my whole life growing up, and I always knew I was good because, like, even though like I wouldn't try hard, I would beat like all my cousins and brothers. And at one point, I got way too easy, so I took that to online in like FIFA 16, 17. Like, I was good, but I wasn't there mentally. Like, I would always, if there's a tight game, I would just like get too nervous and lose. 'Cause at the same time, I feel like I was also a kid, and mentality plays a big part. I think FIFA 18 came around the corner, and like I started playing weekend league a little more serious because I just finished high school, I had more time, and then I think it was around December I beat a few pros, and like my team was average, like I had no one crazy, and I think one pro messaged me. He was like, "Am I a pro?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Are you gonna try to qualify for the next event?" I was like, "I have no idea when it is. I'll try," you know. And then I think came January, which was a qualifying month. You qualified through weekend league back in the day. And weekend league is a thing where you play. Back then it was 40 games, and you had to be top, I think 128 in the world for the month. So 160 games, you had to win like approximately, I'll say 153 to be safe out of the 160. And I think in that month I made it, and then after that it was like that was a roll of the dice. I went to my first tournament, played really well, and from there I made playoffs, made World Cup, and then came the next season in FIFA 19, and I got my first contract, and then yeah, here we are a few years later.
Man, that 40 game weekend league was a grind. For those who don't know, the way it works
Of
is you are
course.
constantly playing someone with the same record as you. So when you get to your 40th game, or pretty much, right? Like maybe within a win or a
Yeah.
loss, but you're pretty much playing someone else who's 39-0 if you're 39-0 trying to win that like 40th. And so very, very, very competitive to be able to consistently do that 4 weeks out of the month. And like you said, only lose like 1 or 2 games out of 40 every week all year long. Like,
Jeez.
it's crazy. This is why when I got introduced to FIFA, because I also didn't know anything, and like I had a crazy experience with the prior Toronto FC player Phil, where we went to Bucharest together, and I got to see what were they called at the time? The qualifiers. I can't remember what the tournaments were called at that point, but they were kind of
It
like
was called
every month or so. Or
yeah,
the winter,
Foot
Foot
Champions one,
Champions. Yeah. So there was like
no, I
six of
think
them throughout the
sorry,
winter. It was like, yeah, go
Foot
ahead.
Cup. I think it was Foot Cup. Foot Cup.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I went to Romania, and I'm watching, and I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, man, how many thousands, tens of thousands of people are trying to do weekend league, and you have to be so consistent, beating everyone every weekend, 40 games. I mean, 40 games in a weekend is like an insane grind. That is a lot of FIFA to play
Could I
every
hop in
single.
for a second,
Yeah,
Shane?
yeah, go.
I just meant to say, in FIFA 19, they changed the format to a qualifier system,
Yeah,
which to even be qualified for that in your region, you had to win like minimum of, let's say, they changed to 30, and you had to win 27 of 30 to be qualified for that playoff. And then you play like a little qualifier in your region. And
yeah.
then let's say it would differ, like every region would be different. But in our region, for example, like it was Xbox and PlayStation split. On Xbox, it was around like 80, PlayStation had like 150, and only four players would make the event.
It's crazy.
And so FIFA 19, they made it a little tougher, in my opinion.
Yeah, so less games, a little bit less of a sweaty grind, but like even higher standards, right? You have to be even more
Yeah.
perfect in order to get there. And so this is what was so shocking to me was like how hard it is to get to one of these tournaments and literally fly to Romania. And now what's great about the system is while it should have bigger prize money, and I think that's heading in the right direction, they did pay for all the players to fly out there, put them up in hotels and all that. So like even if you were an unsigned player, if you were good enough, it was very much like democratized. And that's what I respected about it was you could just have the skill. Obviously there's a pay to win component because you have to have the right team, so you got to open enough packs in order to get it. So that in a sense is not necessarily a totally level playing field, but point being, if you were genuinely good enough, you had a team that was capable of getting you there without any backing or support, even with parents who didn't want to pay to fly you out, EA took care of you and flew you out. But then you get there and the first couple days are like the group stage, or at least the first day for sure, maybe 2 days, and it's like it's totally unceremonial. It is just a LAN center, everyone's sitting at chairs grinding, and most people will never be on camera, most people will never stand on a stage or go into a broadcast studio. And I just thought to myself, like, man, how hard it is, the perfection that's required to like get to a point where you're actually like a consistent, tournament winner, world champion in this game is like crazy. And I think that's, when you're into the scene, that's what makes you realize like these like top players in the world, they are a league ahead. Like to be able to do it's like being a PGA Tour golfer. You know what I mean? It is a game of perfection. You just cannot make any mistakes. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was
Super
pretty.
amazing.
Yeah, like back in the day, even let's say from FIFA 19 to now, even let's say last year, there's been a few consistent names that have been up there at the top. And end of the day, as a fellow competitor, you have to respect it because, like, it's not easy to do that every year. Maybe you can do that like 2 out of 4 or like 3 out of 4, but do like every single year it's really hard, and you gotta respect it.
Is there a consensus GOAT right now?
It's I think it's kind of fell off like more like 50-50 now, but I mean I have my goal, people have their goal, and I'm pretty sure there's a debate between 2, maybe 3 now. So yeah.
Who's your GOAT?
Would you like me to say the names?
Let's give him a shout out.
Okay,
Mess him up a bit.
my goal would be Dossary, MS Dossary. I guess FIFA 18 World Champ, FIFA 19 Vice World Champ. Like I guess runner up. He won the Xbox side undefeated though in the World Cup. FIFA 20 made the World Cup as well. 21 made the World Cup as well, and then 22 he didn't. But just like that, like it's not easy, And yeah, I respect it a lot. And he was also like a great teammate of mine and a good friend. So.
I'm hogging all the questions. Phil, you go next. But on that, so being the Xbox champion and then being vice champion, basically runner up, the final match, the crossover is always on PlayStation, right?
The final match would be it's always 2 legs in competitive FIFA, and one game would be on Xbox, one would be on PlayStation. So it's kind of fair.
Okay.
Yeah. But then you do like
today.
a coin flip. You do like a coin flip to determine which console goes first, because I think like maybe you want to play on the away console first, so on the second leg you're more comfortable, or like how
when all the money's on the table, you're on your home console. That makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's good. That's more balanced than I thought. I thought it was PS was the finals, and I was just wondering how often the Xbox champ would be able to beat the PS champ. Is there a console that favors goal scoring more though? Because it's also a 2-leg aggregate score thing, right? So if one side is kind of more tuned to scoring versus more defensive play, like does that ever play a factor?
Mm-hmm. I just feel the only factor would be if one of the, let's say, the PlayStation player has never touched the Xbox controller in his life. I don't think he'd be comfortable like attacking with quick movements, because you have to like when you watch a FIFA pro's hands while they play, it does look pretty quick, and to be able to do that, you need to be comfortable, right? So if it's a new controller, usually they try to defend on the away console, and then on their home console they'll try to attack like crazy to score goals. Because that's what I've seen from my own personal experience.
Okay, I'm hogging again. I like how you said. If you've never held a controller before, it's mind-boggling to me how chill console pro gamers are. From my experience with going back and forth between controllers, obviously you have your home console, but we had this in the 2K League where all of a sudden PlayStation became the console, and all of Raptors Uprising was from Xbox, and like. There was no real major concern from our guys. I mean, it was like a recurring question I asked on every weekly meeting, like, because we were trying to get them the next gen PlayStations, but they were super hard to get that season. And I was kind of stressing to the guys, like, and obviously they would have taken it if we could get them for them. It's not like they wouldn't have played on PlayStation, but I was like, how concerned are we about the fact that, you know, you're not kind of tuning your hands to the PlayStation controller this off season? And there was very, very little concern over it. I think you switched consoles, right? Because you were Xbox native, and now you're PlayStation, obviously, because, you know, eMLS is on PlayStation. And again, Phil, who used to rep TFC, he did the same thing. And it's like, it's amazing to me because as an amateur PC gamer, if my mouse pad changes, if like my, you know, I stand now, as we've talked about on this podcast before, but back in the day, I used to be like adjusting my chair up and down, thinking it was like an inch too high or an inch too low for me to be comfortable. And the fact that at the pro level, you guys like swap back and forth without like major concern about the controllers is crazy to me. Do you feel like that's consistent in console gaming? It's kind of like you should be able to do it on both?
I mean, I think it differs person to person. Like me, for example, when I changed the PlayStation, I had trouble for the first, let's say, few weeks because like my thumb would always be like more angled down instead of like more comfortable, if that makes sense, like where the thumbstick is. And like it would hurt when I played it for like, let's say, over an hour or two. I get a little sore, but over time, I feel like I learned how to actually hold it. So for me, like it held. But usually, I feel like when I see others, there's not much of a difference. But in FIFA, the one thing I would say, like Xbox and PlayStation do have different timing, like when you play. So it's like it feels a little bit different. One feels quicker than the other, or whatnot, stuff like that. So I feel like that's where the change also comes. But you got to get used to it.
I guess so. I could never, bro. I don't know how y'all do that stuff. I'm such a basic gamer anyway, so I could never relate to that on that kind of level. But like, is it strictly like for you? Like, do you like I mean, what other games do you enjoy? Are you pretty good at 2K? Have you ever like really picked up the sticks and applied maximum effort to that? I mean, this is the 2K podcast. I feel like it's only appropriate that I ask what your skills are on those sticks.
I'm not gonna lie, I think I'm good at 2K, but I've only played like my friends and cousins and stuff, and I've never lost. Maybe one of my cousins is pretty good because he plays, but other than that, like I think I'm good with like dribbling and stuff. But like let's say basketball IQ, I don't have it because I'm not a basketball guy.
Yeah. But you're a gamer. You're a pro gamer. You got the mechanical skills, right? It's like 20 years of playing Counter-Strike. I can pop into Warzone and like, you know, be one, like even my buddies who play all the time, like I can still be a top, you know, in our group, which is very, you know, mediocre. But I don't, same thing. I don't have the game sense. I don't, you know, like I'm watching my buddy who's like the hard carry in our friend circle, and he just knows the game better. You know what I mean? I'm playing Warzone like it's Counter-Strike. And so it's like I can aim and stuff like that, but I'm not, you know, taking advantage of the mechanics the way that I would be if we were playing Counter-Strike, for instance. So I think there's like a genre comfortability, right? You're a sports sim pro, so you can kind of transfer over into other sports sim games.
Yeah, like the only thing I can do with 2K is really like dribble and drive in, but other than that, like, yeah, that's it.
Which makes sense because you're flashy on the sticks in FIFA too.
Yeah, I could dribble in FIFA and I can dribble in 2K, and yeah, I can't transfer anything else over.
How you doing, Phil? You good? You all right?
I'm dying, man. Something went down the wrong pipe. I don't know what happened. Must have been that Costco branded stuffing that I had for Thanksgiving.
Oh man, you got to get yourself a nice turkey dinner delivered by our friends at UberEats. I feel like there's got to be some restaurant out there that's going to get you a proper platter.
That would be ideal. I'm not gonna lie, but you know, I'm on the. I'm just enjoying the interview right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm just hanging in there. It's all good.
Yeah. Noid's a straight shooter, always like insightful. I was always like super impressed by my conversations with him, how kind of like dialed in he was in his thinking, and also how friggin' honest he is. Like we used to laugh in some of the interviews, you know what I mean? Like even earlier today, he's like, I think that game I was really trying and I smoked him, and it's like, bro, in like a pro setting, how could you ever not be fully trying? You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying, bro. That's a testament to greatness.
In that certain game, I had to really like, this is it. Like this is kind of do or die because you know I need this Canada tournament. You know you could say, and I want to get picked for it. So I had to like really, I don't know how to explain it, but I had like different passion. You could say.
Is there someone who ignites that passion in you? I feel like we got to hit up Kev, who manages Noid, and be like, listen, if Noid has a hype man, someone who can just make him bring his full compete every single eMLS game, I think it's worth flying that person out. We need to get you there.
That person would be myself because I think no one can motivate me the way I motivate myself. Like if I really want something, like if I put my head to it, then I'll do everything I can, unless like something stops me, right? But I'll try my best usually.
Hey, I know that
All
to
the
be
time,
true too.
actually, not usually.
I know that to be
Yeah.
true because of our negotiations as we were signing you and stuff. Like you definitely you're like, you're good, kind of in the boardroom type guy as well. I'll say, and I cleared this. I cleared with Naweed. We were going to tell this story before the pod because again, like we like to be raw and real. I think that's why people listen to pods. But so my first experience with Naweed was I invited him again. He was like this like star player. Was already signed to someone else, but just wanted to like meet him, right? And just kind of like build a bridge and like maybe look for opportunities later on down the line. And so you came out to our partnership suite at a TFC game, and I think that was you said it was your first TFC game potentially, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yeah, it was my first.
yeah, and Chew Boy was there. It was a great day. Anyway, hit it off, had a great time, and just kind of left things. And they never really like talked much after that. Again, you were signed. We were in great shape with Phil. I had a great 4 years with him, and loved having him rep TFC. And then I hit you up one time to have a conversation. And truthfully, it wasn't about scouting for a new player. They were announcing a 2v2 thing where you had to pair like an Xbox player and it was like Club Summit or something like that. And so I wanted to hit you up and be like, hey, is there a way we could potentially work out something with your org? But I didn't say all that. I just kind of said, yo, we should have a chat sometime soon. Kind of just like off the cuff. And like, I'm running the Raptors Uprising. This is like, I can't remember. I think it was in our season. Anyway, and I kind of just like lobbed a message out there, and I think you replied back, and I think there was like one quick exchange, but we didn't set anything. It was just like we should talk at some point. And I think I let the inbox, the DMs, sit over the weekend. It was maybe like 48 hours. I didn't get back to you, and then all of a sudden I get a call from Phil. Shout out Phil again, and he's like, bro, I know what's going on. You're trying to sign GoalMachine. He hit me up. He said you haven't responded to him. Like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, first of all, Phil, I wasn't. This was about you two teaming up together. And then I was like, you know what, man? I was mad at you. Let's just call a spade a spade. So I put that conversation on ice for a little bit. But then obviously, fast forward a year or two, whatever it might be, and we got back engaged when we were looking to sign someone new, and you happened to be a free agent. And like I said, you came out of the gate and made me look real smart because you won the first tournament and looked super competitive throughout the rest of that inaugural season. And man, I can't wait to watch what happens this year in the eMLS and FIFA more broadly for you. But yeah, I think you said you had a clear recollection of that exchange as well and what went down, and there's maybe another side to the story.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think it was the September, October of 2019. FIFA 19.
So I wasn't in season. So I can't use that excuse as why I didn't get back to you for 48 hours.
Well, I think like I'm not too sure on that. I think it was then because the season just finished, and I think I was looking for a team at the time. Like I was a free agent at the time for a certain period. Like
so you're probably
maybe like a month. So I got a message from you, and I was like, wait. I was like, isn't Phil B with them? And I was like, okay. I replied back hoping that we could talk about whatever you may want to talk about. I don't know. And then I think a few weeks went by, I didn't reply. So I was like, it's okay because I ended up signing anyways somewhere. And then I think I told Phil about it in that period. I was like, I used to talk to him here and there. And I was like, yo, like Shane hit me up the other day, by the way. And I'm like, he's such a busy guy. He never got back to me or something, And then he's like, he's like that sometimes.
I think it was more like tell Shane to respond if he wants to talk to me or something like that. It was forceful. And I think it was days, not weeks. I think it was days, not weeks. But if the DM history goes back far enough, there's proof, and maybe you're going to expose me on Twitter after this. But I maintain it was 48 hours or so, or a weekend. If it was weeks, I'm going to fall on my sword and own it. But
yeah, well, I'm not sure. I'm just going off. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong, but that's what I think happened. And then I'm like, Shane hit me up, never got back to me. And he's like, I'll ask him about it. And I was like, yeah, thanks. And he never got back to me either, I guess.
Yeah, and you guys are playing it cool. Meanwhile, he hits me up. He's like, "What's going on? Are you getting rid of me? Blah blah blah." I'm like, "Oh, this is exactly what I didn't want to happen." But in hindsight, I had more control over the conversation if I had been more responsive. So then that would not have happened had I not been. So I was self-aware enough to realize, but I also still wanted to put the conversation on ice a little bit. And anyway, here we are. However many years later, and you're the guy repping TFC and doing it, proudly. So
it's good to be able to look back and laugh at those moments.
100%.
Exactly.
It's all business. Like I don't take anything personally in this game. Honestly, it's all just business. You know what I mean? Like
you make friends, but at the end of the day, you're in an industry where it's like your friend can take your job.
Competitive,
And that's not
bro. It's
personal. Yeah,
competitive,
exactly.
100%. Most industries are like that, honestly, dude. From my experience, it's you got to learn
Facts.
to collaborate with people who are gunning for your job, think they're better than you, blah blah blah. Like you're all going for the same promotions, all that kind of stuff. But honestly, you have to be learn to be collaborative. That's one of the things that I had to learn the hard way. Doing everything on my own was just not sustainable, and ultimately not the best, the most optimal way to do things. I may have said this before in the pod, but like one of my big realizations with Raptors Uprising was how much when I came into a meeting with an idea, if I led with it, I didn't get as much contribution from the team. And so I started flipping it where I would go, here's the kind of broad strokes of what we need to do. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And every single time without fail, the input I would get from the rest of the team would affect my ideas that I came in with and make them better. And so by the end of that, but if I led, because I was, the leader, it quieted everyone down. And so I had to, hear everyone's, unfiltered take, unaffected by my leanings, my, inklings, and inevitably it made my ideas better. And so it was a real lesson learned for me in the importance of collaboration and giving everybody on the team a voice to be able to weigh in. And I try to do that all the time now with AMP as well, is just go around the room and kind of, if someone's being too quiet, put them on the spot. What do you think? You know what I mean? Especially if it's someone who I think is well versed in the particular area that we might be talking about.
The contributions you can get from somebody who's like, even somebody who's like on the more quieter side, can probably surprise you. I've kind of been in situations like that. Where we've called upon, someone who's just like being a bystander in the meeting. You know what I'm saying? Like, once you give some contributing factors here, and I think that's just good, like all around team building, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. And I'm like a forceful speaker, know-it-all, control freak type of person. So it's like I can be particularly difficult to collaborate with. If I lead, if I come out of the gate and I'm just like, here's my idea, I realize it stymies, collaboration. So I tried to learn from that. So Phil had a really natural segue into one of the good reasons why we have you on the pod, which is it's the World Cup right now, and Canada's competing. And even as not a huge soccer fan, like I was engaged in that game, and it's super fun. Same thing. I think the thing about the World Cup is just like my sort of epiphany about FIFA competition how many years back. It's like it's just you're watching the best of the best, and watching Canada give Belgium that run that it gave. Phil, I know you're not Canadian, so you probably didn't watch it, but watching Canada, like they dominated that game. Now I also know in soccer when you get out to a lead, you play more defensively, but it was only a 1-goal lead for the second ranked team in the world. So like I'm not sure if it was just that they were playing conservatively and letting Canada have all that kind of possession, but it really felt to me like Canada looked like the better team. And again, I'm completely ignorant in my soccer knowledge, but I wonder from your perspective, did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched the whole game. Yeah.
And what did you think? Do we look as good as it looked to me, or?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That I think the thing what happened was Belgium did not expect Canada to come out off the bat like that, because they came out pressing and playing like a high pressing game, which you wouldn't expect from a nation that hasn't made the World Cup in 36 years, I think, if I'm not
something
wrong,
like that, yeah,
something like that. And then Belgium's game plan I feel like just went downhill, and Canada took over the game. They had like a bunch of chances, missed a penalty. There's all over Belgium, and then at the end of the day, Belgium has like some top class players, and all they really need is like one chance, and they got their 1 goal, and that's it. And then maybe they closed up shop, and then I just feel like Belgium just couldn't play their game at all because Canada had like let's say shocked them. So it was a pretty 50-50 game. Could have went either way, but Belgium took the lead and took the game.
Well, tell me something. Obviously, since you're sitting in tune and watching everything, I'm watching as a casual because I'm not gonna lie. Like I think football is hype as hell. I just haven't watched it enough to understand. But that World Cup, it's really hard not to pay attention when it's all over the feed, and for good reason. What are your World Cup predictions, my guy? I know it's early.
I'll say, the team I'm rooting for is Argentina because of Messi. But I'll say there's a lot of good teams, and this one I can't really tell who's gonna win. Like I can't tell you outright, but I would hope for Argentina. I want to see Messi lift the World Cup, and
they may lose their opening match.
They did, but listen, in 2010, Spain lost their first match too, and they went on to win. So there's always hope.
I love how we build these narratives as if they have some impact on current present situation. And what about for Canada? What's your prediction for how we're going to finish?
Canada's group is pretty tough. I'm not gonna lie. Croatia's a top team as well. They made the World Cup final in the 2018.
I
And
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know about Morocco. I know they have a few good players, but I haven't watched them play. But I think Canada, if they play the same way they did against Belgium, come off the bat strong, and they just have to get the first goal. But if they get the lead, I'm sure they can do well. But they have to put the ball in the net first of all, and then yeah. But I'm sure they have a good chance if they keep playing the same way. They can get out of the groups for sure.
Yeah, that would be crazy exciting. And man, they had chances. Like they had a penalty kick early,
Yeah,
and didn't capitalize. And there were like I counted like 3, 4, maybe as many as 5 headers that just didn't quite connect perfectly on. And it just felt like at some point they were going to break through and score, and then it kind of got down to the end, and you realize, okay, they're just it's probably not going to convert. I don't know if you guys heard that, but my doorbell just rang, and you know what that means. UberEats just arrived, and I am 14-0 in beating Phil Vizu to receive my UberEats. Or wait, did you win one week? Can't remember.
I think I won off a technicality.
Yep. And at my house, I've got a thing that teleports it from the front door to my office here. So shout out UberEats. always appreciate Raptors Uprising for keeping us fed on these podcast days. It's a nice little additional bonus to coming on and seeing Phil and talking to our great guests. Like I said, Noid, I've been pumping your tires all episode, but it's awesome watching you rep TFC. I'm hoping for more trophies this year. I'm hoping for the big trophy this year for sure. I'll be watching when you're competing. Phil, I don't know if any final words from you or anything for Phil or for Noid, sorry, before we let him go.
No, I mean, it's great to be able to get like I said, I know it's a 2K podcast, but anytime we can bring somebody, outside of that space and kind of get their perspective on their respective sport or what they're into is always just like, it's very entertaining for me too, especially somebody who can be a casual observer of things, but it's like the competitive aspect too. I mean, that whole 40 games in a month or something like that, or a weekend.
In a weekend,
in a weekend.
Yeah,
Bro, you're different for that. Like, I don't even know what to say. You're different for that. So nothing but respect, man, and best of luck on the upcoming season and stuff.
Yeah, any shout outs, Sweet? Any final words? Go ahead.
I appreciate you guys for this. Thank you guys for having me, and yeah, it was great talking about just the past and just catching up. So yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Oh, yeah, and shout out my manager Kev. He's one of the best managers I've had. No disrespect, Shane. You're also one of the best I've had for the while. And,
it was short. It was short-lived. We were only together a few weeks. Kev's the best. Kev worked with me when I was at MLSE, and he's still there to this day. And we keep in touch a lot, and he's doing a great job on all fronts with the MLSE esports program. So shout out, Kev.
Yeah, or I could also add, there's a reason why you trusted him a lot. Right, so.
For sure.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, buddy. Man. Appreciate your time, 100%, guys. So another great edition of the Raptors 2K podcast from our friends at UberEats. Shane, 13-1 in orders with me, and the trend continues,
did get one,
as does our trend of having great guests. So we certainly do appreciate you taking the time. But that'll be all from us. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
And me hogging all the questions. See you guys next time.